the Warplar. This has become my favorite brawling DPS build to play. It thrives off of being in the thick of battle, resources, dead NPCs, dead enemies, dead friendlies around you help increase this thing's survivability a ton. As you saw on the previous stat screen, we were around 7,600 and some weapon damage buffed up. That is actually lower than the real total. There's an additional 300 plus weapon damage that doesn't even show up on the stat sheet. I'm currently in purple armor, so once everything gets golded out and you calculate the 300 additional damage, we are above 8,000 weapon damage. But not only that, through our rotation, we will be able to proc up to an additional 28% on damage dealt. So we have something that just has a phenomenal burst on it, is really survivable, but thrives being in the thick of an actual fight and battle. It's much weaker as solo play, and with this build, we're not just going to be going over gear sets. We're going to take a little bit of time to go over some group comp as well that will allow you to take this character to another level when it comes to being the main DPS in a group. Okay, we're starting our setup as if it's just us running around solo, or if it's just us and another buddy that's on DPS. We're gonna go with New Moon. I am running the Maul for the additional penetration. I like it because it's more consistent. However, since the Onslaught is our alt, if you want to run the two-handed sword and just proc higher off of the alt, then you can. For me, I like the consistency a bit more. We are running a damage health poison that gives us minor maim to the enemy and minor brutality to us. That 10% extra weapon damage, even though it's only for 3.5 seconds, when we're working our rotation and our burst, it procs at the perfect times, and the 3.5 seconds is more than enough for us to get that burst in on a player. And when you're talking about a character that's sitting, you know, around 6.5, 7,000 weapon damage, that 10% is like a clever alchemist proc. It is well worth it. Now, through some group utility, there are ways that we can get the minor brutality without having to run it as a poison. And when that happens, you can switch out and go to a typical double dot. That's great. The one I really like to run, it is an expensive poison, but traumatic poison. Heal absorption, so their next 2,000 incoming healing is negated out. Got 5.5 seconds, which is more than enough time when we're bursting, especially as hard as we are. But getting the minor heroism, getting that extra alt gen to help boost our total damage and our output and our uptime is great. I love it. Now, New Moon is only going to be front barred. Back bar, we're running Master Bow infused with the weapon damage enchant. Just proc a crap load of damage on our back bar and go into our burst. Again, when you're in a small group and you don't have a healer, we're running Blood Spawn. Again, for the extra tankiness, the extra stam recovery, and that extra ulti gen is great. But as soon as you get a healer with your group, You can take that off and get bowels on and pick up the extra damage, exponentially increase the damage on your burst. It's a phenomenal set. And we're combining this with Essence Thief. Essence Thief is a great way to help us sustain. Once you get your rotation down, you're going to be hitting your light attacks every 10 seconds. This is going to constantly be up. It's a nice heal. It's a great way to get that additional stamina. But the extra 10% damage done proc is just phenomenal. With this, there is still some issues when you're running around a tower. You know, it can go off the side and be floating, you know, halfway between floors and stuff of that nature. So you do have to be aware and be ready for that sort of thing to happen. However, open field, inside enemy keeps and things of that nature, you should have absolutely no problem with being able to continually keep this up. Everything we run will be impenetrable. Our two big pieces with legs and chest, we have the multi effect enchantment to go ahead and get a little bit of extra health and some magicka to make sure we can keep our purges up. Now, again, because I'm in purple, I'm losing a little bit of weapon damage from running the infused jewelries. If you're in a group and you have another one of these builds with you, you can definitely switch out this enchantment. I have a second one that gives me another 3-piece of infused weapon damage. So that's really helpful when we're talking about proccing up to we're basically getting close to 9,000 at that point. But again, when you don't have great group comp or you're just soloing, you need the extra reduced cost on your stam. Alright, for our race we are running the Nord to get a little bit of extra health, stamina, but the Aldi regen is phenomenal. The additional physical and spell resistance is huge for this build. On our back bow bar, we're running Poison Inject to get that proc for the Master's Bow. Our Resolving Vigor. Binding Javelin for our stun. Now, if you happen to have a CC tank in your group, then get rid of Binding Javelin, pick up Channeled Acceleration, whichever morph you want, to get that extra 10% damage done to your critical hits. Extended Ritual, Restoring Focus. I went with that morph because I want the additional stamina. Temporal Guard, just there mainly for the reduction of damage taken by 8%, but occasionally to use it to get out of really bad situations if it actually works correctly. Our front bar attack bar, obviously we're running Onslaught. It's just stupidly overpowered at this point. Dizzying Swings to get the off balance, plus it's just a really good damage. Biting Jabs, obviously it's a Templar. The reason why I'm running Camo Hunter is, yeah, we're getting a little bit of the Fighter Guild passive to give us a little boost to our overall weapon damage, but because of Jabs being an AoE, because of Onslaught being an AoE, because of Reverse Slice also damaging enemies that are nearby as an AoE, your uptime on the Minor Berserker is almost 100% when you're in a good battle. It's very good for our overall damage output. Repentance, while we have it slotted, we're getting all of our minor intellect, endurance, and fortitude, so all of our regens are increased by 10%. But this healing for you and your allies, restoring 3,000 stamina for you for each corpse that's nearby. It's crazy the amount of sustain that you get out of this. The burst heal that you get out of this for the group is phenomenal. Especially when you're talking about the fact that it's a move that costs no resources to cast. So when you're fighting on resources, fighting on flags, you know, taking keeps, there's so many dead NPCs around, dead players around, both friendly and foe, and this works on all of them. The amount of sustain and group healing that you get off of this is just phenomenal. And our last move again is the reverse slice. Okay, so when we're in small group and we don't have a Stam DK with us running igneous weapons, we're going to be using Essence of Weapon Power Pots to start the fight off with. If you do have that DK running that and giving you your major and minor brutality already, then we're going to get rid of that and be running our Essence of Immovability. It helps the survivability of this build so much to be able to have that DK taking care of both your major and minor brutalities, allowing you to switch your potion and the poisons that you run. It's a phenomenal boost to this particular character. We are running the Lover for our Mundus Stone. Now again, this is to keep your build more consistent. If you're going to be running Balrogs and you're going to want the two-handed sword because you're basing all of your burst off of running Onslaught, then go ahead and switch this over to the Warrior, get the additional weapon damage, and you're going to be peaking a lot higher. However, I like the overall consistency without doing that to push the max. I find that I'm hitting people plenty hard. I don't really need the additional higher peak on this build, so I love being able to be more consistent with my damage on it. For food, it's Artaeum takeaway broth. It is still an expensive food, I understand, but the health recovery, the stamina recovery, it's well worth it. It makes a huge difference in the survivability of this build. Alright, for champion points, I'm going to start out with 56 into Warlord, 67 into Sprinter. Now, for me, it makes a huge difference in this build for me to be as mobile as possible and still have stamina. If you find that you're not having to run around quite as much as I do, then by all means take some points out of Sprinter and get them into your health recovery or even tenacity. However, 75 into Mooncalf for me, 15 into tenacity, 56 into tumbling, and the 1 extra point just into Befoul. 32 points into Blessed, 3 points into Physical Weapon Expert, 72 into Master of Arms, 56 into Precise Strikes, 51 into Piercing, 56 into Mighty, 61 into Ironclad, 13 into spell shield, 56 into resistant, 12 into medium armor, 49 into hardy. Put an extra 2% in there just to help offset some of the onslaught builds and javelins being thrown around right now. 37 into elemental defender, 23 into thick skin, and 19 into quick recovery. Well, if you like the build, please go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, if you want to see some more ESO content as it's released. And as always, I want to thank you guys just for taking the time to watch the video. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, just leave a comment down below and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Thanks for your guys' time.